cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, friend.
Shout out to the blend, Chagachinos.
Brought to you by, powered by, the blends.
Powered by Chaga.
Chaga Chi Chi. Okay, so this is going to be a series that is for our newsletter subscribers only, and we're going to give you the tea on the, what did we call it? The state of the podcast?
State of the podcast.
State of the podcast. We, as everything that we try to do, being transparent about the process is really the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't, in a year from now, if this podcast thing works and it's successful, then we'll bring you along the way, regardless of the outcome. Like, we're going to bring you along the way, like how we started a podcast from zero. Is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
What have we learned? What challenges are we having? How are we thinking about our guest strategy? How are we going to monetize and when? The stats. We just found, or Haley found, this website that shows you your stats of who's listening, how often, where they're listening, and we'll share all of the stats at the end of this episode. But we have a lot more listeners than we thought we did, and they're in places that we had no idea we were reaching.
Yeah,
and we're even on some charts.
Yeah, we're on some charts, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I know. Not just Ireland either.
Yeah.
Popping up in other places.
Yep.
But I don't know, anything else that you would add about what the purpose of this update is?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about starting a podcast, or even people that aren't, you get very curious about what goes into it and what the stats looks like, what results come out of it. Is nobody listening or random people finding it and listening? We just want to show you guys the behind the scenes of what it actually looks like, and hopefully you'll watch us grow together. And so this first episode, we'll share our stats. Hopefully in a year, we won't be going down and we'll just be going up. But
yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be really cool to take the community with us and show the step-by-steps. And if you want to start a podcast, then you have a better understanding because you've seen the process done before.
Yeah, you're invited to the room where decisions are being made and information is being shared that you're not necessarily in, but we're inviting you again to the whole purpose of the podcast is opening the doors to a room where an interesting conversation is happening that you're not necessarily in, and we want to let you in. And same thing here. We're actually talking about where we've been, how we started, challenges, where we're going, how we're thinking about this. So join us in the behind the scenes of how we're building and growing the podcast. So this will be a bonus episode every month for email subscribers only.
Yeah, it'll be a private episode. We're just opening this first one up to the public so you guys can see what it's like, and then join the email newsletter at Gateless.com if you want to get these episodes in your inbox. But it's for VIPs only, so.
Yes. Should we start with why we even started, or like what our first... how did we make the decision to start a podcast? Because we started the conversation with, we want to build a community of women that actually support each other and don't gatekeep information and feel like there's room at the top for everybody. And that didn't organically... I guess maybe during one of our book club meetings like 6 months ago, I said something like, I want to start a podcast.
Yeah, it was definitely the first thing you said, but then we talked, and so you had the idea for Gateless. We met for coffee so that we could talk about your idea or the Anti-Gatekeepers Club.
Yes.
And then I was trying to figure out, I wanted to do something where I was teaching business owners how to start and scale a business, or something to work from homies. I wanted to show people how they could work from home. And then we met for coffee, and I feel like we were both just like, we should just do this together. Yeah. And I was like, your idea is better. And then, but at the time I was saying like, oh, you could build a community. And then we started off like thinking about building a community. But then I feel like we were just like, the podcast, this just makes sense. Like,
it makes sense because what we're trying to do is provide access to conversations that not everybody has the ability to like have or set up for themselves. Like, we're going to continue to interview people that we didn't even know we could have access to. Some of the people that we're recording with in December and January are incredibly successful, have built huge brands for themselves, and are certainly not in our personal networks.
Yeah.
But the point of the community was connecting women and access to information and conversations and brains that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. Same thing for the podcast. So I guess it was it was an organic pivot to, well, we have to document the conversations we're having. It's also an amazing way to network.
Yeah. You want to talk about like what's like the best things that have come out of the podcast for you so far?
Yeah, I have been blown away with how generous people in my network have been with their own networks and offering to introduce me to people that they know that I'm like 6 degrees separated from or more. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. Let me text them right now and introduce you. And that's been incredible, especially because I never really thought we'd be able to talk to these people. And it's not about, oh my gosh, they're untouchable. It's not that. It's I'm so fascinated with what they built. I'm so fascinated with, were they intentional about how they built their business and their brand? Did they know that becoming an influencer was step one to building a life that they're looking for? So I think I've learned so much from the conversations that we've had, and then it's been so validating that the angle we're taking to these conversations is different than what most people talk about when they go on a personal growth or entrepreneurial business podcast. Typically, when you're asked to be on a podcast that is in that category, you're asked to say, okay, tell me how you started your business. And it's really business focused. It's not as much about, so how did you get to the place where you're able to say no to things? How do you feel about yourself? Do you have high self-worth, low self-worth? What has that journey been like? But that's really, in my opinion, the most important part of how anybody builds something successful is, who are you as a person and how have you felt along the way?
Yeah. And
how have you evolved? So I think like the thing I've gotten the most out of this journey is the conversations themselves have been amazing. Watching people resonate with these conversations and offer to introduce us to people has been really awesome. And then it does make me feel good that we're sharing these conversations with people.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you?
A lot of the same. A lot of very validating and feeling, wow, people are actually listening. And having
way more than we thought.
Yeah, having friends and stuff say, oh, I listened and it's so good. I love to listen to it. That for me, it's been, I never thought I would do a podcast. I've done podcast interviews for Coffee and Contracts where I am being interviewed. And I've always thought that I was not good at it at all. I feel like I've never left a podcast that I did in bed. That went well. I always left and was like, ooh, I wonder if they'll post that. I wonder if they're just going to scrap that. Because I feel like I have a really hard time, or sometimes, articulating my thoughts. And I always look at people who are so articulate and I'm like, how are they doing that? My mind, like, I can't get my thoughts into words sometimes. Yeah. But it's all about practice. So now I'm realizing that it's getting easier and easier with every episode we do. I'm starting to figure out how to articulate better and I'm not panicking. Yeah. Sometimes I get into, when I'm speaking in public or doing a podcast, I have this voice in my head that says, oh God, you're not doing too well. It literally will start talking to me while I'm speaking and it'll be like, nobody understands a word you're saying right now. And it starts to make me spiral and do bad, but that's getting a lot better. All that to say that this podcast has helped me in a lot of selfish ways. It's helped me to practice that, to strengthen that muscle. And I think another great thing, like if someone is listening to this that's considering a podcast and you already have a business where you're needing to create content for it, or you're building a brand or something and you need content, it is such a great way to create content and it holds you accountable. And it's just, I don't know, it's killing multiple birds with one stone. You're networking, you're creating content, you're on podcasts, so now you're on another SEO platform where people search for certain terms and they find you. So there's a ton of benefits of it. And yeah, I think it's a really good tool for that.
One last thing in reflection on how this has impacted us so far. In hindsight, it makes total sense, but I didn't realize it when we decided to do this. the most natural way, the thing I'm most curious in, and the thing that I feel like I am best at, is conversation and getting inside of someone's head and just taking the curiosity that I have and tinkering around in somebody else's brain and getting them to share and feel comfortable and be open. And I didn't realize that the podcast is a way for people to get to know us.
Yeah.
And get to know the way we think and the change that we're trying to make, or that people we're trying to relate to, in like this abundance mindset versus scarcity. Like, there is room for all of us at the top, and actually, in fact, in a room where all your friends are there, for you to be sitting there looking at how impressed you are with all your friends and how successful they've been and how much they've accomplished is like a way better feeling than sitting in a room and thinking, I have done so much more than everybody around me. Like, who wants that? You want to see all the people you love successful. So it's been a natural way for people to get to know us, the way that we think, for us to build our brand, and for us to really actually identify like what Gateless even is through these conversations, as opposed to us being like, okay, I'm going to record a bunch of reels and put them on Instagram. Like, that is not natural for me. I am trying to do it. I am paying the suck tax big time in that arena. And I know it's important, but it's like, but what better way for somebody to get to know us and our brand and what we're trying to do than just listening to us have a conversation? Yeah.
In terms of the marketing world, everybody's talking about how long form content is trending short term.
Really?
Short form content is like right now, long form content is like doing really well. And short form content is falling behind a little bit. So
interesting. I wonder why.
People are tired of it, I think. People are tired of the fast,
inundated with tiny snippets of what did I even just watch? That made me feel weird.
Yeah, when you watch a long form piece of content, you really get to know the creator a lot better. And and listen, take it in slowly. Listen while you're doing the dishes, while you're doing your laundry.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of how we got started from a setup, starting a podcast is I think there's a lower barrier to entry than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a huge business to start a podcast. You don't have to have a huge brand to start a podcast.
Yeah, let's talk about the costs and like the exact step-by-step.
Yeah. What did we buy?
We didn't really buy anything right away, but we may be pivoting to buying our own equipment.
Setup, yeah.
But we found a podcast studio in Tampa, and there's like a few in the area where we're paying like a monthly $950 a month. We get 2 episodes, 2 long form episodes, and 2 social snippets from those episodes, right?
Yep.
And
that was just something that we decided to invest our own money in, a little bit of our own money, to preserve our time. We both are busy and have a lot of responsibility, so it was worth it to us to use some of our own money that maybe we would use for like fund money or something like that to invest in the business so that we could have more of our time back and we weren't sitting here figuring out how to produce.
And I think people can you can still start a podcast on your laptop with the plugged in Apple headphones.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the reason we chose that route is because I think it also held us accountable to have a time slot scheduled with a company, and you have to show up. And it's really cool because I've recorded a ton of videos for Coffee and Contracts that have never hit the light of day because I recorded them and I was like, once I'm done recording, I'm like, I do not want to edit this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it probably wasn't even good anyway. So then they just edit it for you. So I would recommend that starting off, but
you learn a lot too about you learn about the way that you should be preparing for the episodes. I think, to your point, I guess it's to the same point of accountability. It felt more like something that we had a date for, we had to prep for, as opposed to us pivoting and picking up really quickly and doing it on our laptops. Like,
we could have been scrappier,
but that's a choice. We specifically made the choice to not be scrappy from the beginning because we wanted it to be very high quality from the beginning. We wanted to have, we also made the decision that most of our guests were going to be in person. And so we wanted to invite them to like a professional place to record, as opposed to our house, which we can do for sure. And I actually really love the idea that we got from one of our guests, Marin, Gateless on the go. And recording episodes as we're on the road and traveling for work or personal, as things come up and topics come up, or we meet somebody that we want to interview. So we're going to start to pivot to having our own equipment to produce our own when we want to. And I guess to do that, you need to have microphones,
Bluetooth
or plug-in, preferably plug-in.
once we get our, I'll tell you what, once we get our setup going on the next version of this, we'll tell you guys every piece of equipment that we bought and how we like it.
Right now, we're literally recording on a
Canon G7X. So it's a camera that went viral on TikTok because all the girls...
Is this for vlogging?
It can be for vlogging. It's a good vlogging camera, but all the girlies are taking the flash camera. If you're taking a picture in front of a sunset, you know how the iPhone never gets it good?
Yeah.
These cameras are really good with the flash. For flash photos. I used it in California on my birthday, and
oh, nice.
My friends were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's amazing. It's the one that, anyways.
You sent me the link, right?
Yeah.
No, you sent me the link to a different one.
Oh, I did?
I thought you said you liked your Sony better. Or no, you like
I like the Canon
You
better.
like the Canon. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully
cool.
I didn't send you the Sony link.
No, you're probably right. Okay, and then what else did we have to invest in? Like nothing really.
We don't pay for Buzzsprout, right?
Nope.
So that if you're wondering like, okay, how do I get it on the internet?
Yeah.
There's multiple different platforms for this, but we're using Buzzsprout, and they help you.
It's your publisher.
Part. Yeah, so they publish it for you.
So you just make an account on Buzzsprout, and you actually upload your episodes to. You're not uploading directly to Spotify or directly to Apple Podcasts. You're uploading to Buzzsprout. They verify that you're not a robot.
Yeah.
And then they publish you on. You select which outlets you want to publish on. We're doing Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then they also track all your stats for you, your downloads, your listens, trending over time.
Not a lot though.
Not a lot. That's true.
Rephonic is the one.
Oh, with all the stats. Rephonic. Okay.
Yeah, that Rephonic, you can search for anyone's podcast and see how many listeners they have per month, what charts they're on, and then if they have a lot of episodes or it's a bigger podcast, it'll show is it skewing female or male, what's their engagement score. We don't have those yet. I think it's once you have like enough data that they can look through for that, and like how many episodes they have, which we'll read those to you shortly here.
Yes. And then the way you could edit, there's several sites that have AI driven editing, so it's super quick.
Yeah.
We've been using Descript to get our own social snippets from episodes. So you upload your episode and it pretty much looks like a Google Doc of the whole transcription. And to get a little snippet, all you do is delete the rest of the text, and it leaves only the words in the video associated with what you want to leave, which is super cool and easy. And then that's pretty much all you have to do. You record either yourself or in a production studio.
Yeah, you could totally do it on your computer. You could do it with a tool like Riverside, or you could use Zoom. Yeah. And then we used Canva to create the cover photo. Or we did have a brand shoot with I had a brand shoot scheduled for Coffee and Contracts, and we lumped in a quick little Gateless session. Shout out Lucy Sullivan Photography in St. Pete. And we used those photos, which I think having high quality photos is great. And then we used Canva to just create a simple little cover photo.
Yep.
So yeah, it's pretty easy to get started.
It is easy to get started. And then the way in which we've been getting inspiration and ideas on how to promote or market the episodes is, honestly, we've been watching podcasts that we really listen to and seeing how they do it.
We were big podcast consumers.
Huge podcast. Still, I at least listen to one a day, if not more. So there's a few that we really, Skinny Confidential and Armchair Expert, and we just see how they promote on Instagram. We learn from watching them. We learn from watching how they title their episodes, how they pull words that someone would actually search for.
What platforms are they using?
What platforms, how frequently they're posting, how many days in advance and how many days after.
Yeah.
We've learned a ton just from watching others do it, who came before us do it really well.
Yeah, that's like Gary Vee says, don't do what I say, do what I'm doing.
Do what I do.
Yeah, watch what I do. So we're watching what they do.
We're watching what they do.
We don't need to ask them how they're doing it.
Although I wouldn't mind if they wanted to.
Yeah, if they want to tell us, they'll just let us know. But so we're using Instagram primarily because that's my bread and butter. We're trying to get on TikTok if I can remember the password.
You upload all the episodes to
YouTube, TikTok. We're doing shorts on YouTube as well, and that's LinkedIn. We're using LinkedIn as well.
Yes. Oh yeah. I'm posting the episodes to
And we're just sharing it with our network. So I was part of a mastermind group, Jasmine's mastermind group, and I shared it with them. I'm going to share it with another networking group I'm in.
Yeah. Smart.
And yeah.
Super smart. Guest strategy? Like the way we've found we're back.
Oh, I was like, where'd my coffee go?
The camera just died.
Yep. See, this is what happens when you're scrappy. Oh, can you see my head?
Camera died and Haley changed the battery pack, so now we're going. We were
Yep.
about to talk about how we are thinking about the guests that we have on. So there's infinite number of people that we want to talk to because there's so many stories to be told and we're going to learn so much from every single one. But we're new and we want to get reach and we want to reach a large audience so that these stories can make the impact that we want them to make. So we've been pretty intentional about finding guests who have an audience already to share their story on the podcast. So the way that we've been reaching out to them is through all different platforms. Honestly, I have sent DMs on Instagram and emails that I never thought would be seen or responded to, and they've been responded to really quickly with, yeah, I love this concept, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been really validating, and it's also given me confidence to send even more lofty emails. Like, not all of them have been responded to, of course, but a lot of them have, and people that we never really thought would even see it. Sliding into their DMs and finding their emails on their website.
Yeah.
Or like in their bio, they typically share a link to figure out how to contact them. And then we collaborate on, some people, or like you're less degree separated from certain people than I am. So I'll use my network. Haley has used her network to get in touch with these people, but we really haven't had a negative response yet.
No, not at all. I think there are some certain guests that may ask you to pay to play.
Yeah, that's true.
If people are bigger, they have a bigger audience, they know the value that they bring to the table, then they may ask to pay. We've considered that. We can still figure out when that is appropriate and if the terms meet. I would say we don't want to just pay someone to be on the podcast if they're not going to share it with their audience or share it on their story or collaborate. So we'll be intentional about that. But yeah, I think people love the idea behind it and think it's a really cool movement.
Yeah, and the biggest difference, I know I keep saying this, but we're not trying to just highlight already successful people's success. Again, we're trying to highlight, like, how did you even start? Where did you get the confidence in yourself to make that big bet on yourself or your idea? How did you navigate the people that were trying to hold you back?
Yeah.
How did you figure out what was worth your time and what wasn't? How did you fund these different ideas? So it's not just tell us about the successful journey you've had. It's like, actually, let's talk about the origin of this, and let's talk about what was hard, and let's talk about how you felt through the process.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what you learned that you could share with somebody so that they can learn faster than their own experience.
Yeah. I like really tactical information in podcasts.
Yeah.
And also I like to relate with someone if they're experiencing any kind of like self-doubt or imposter syndrome or...
Because everyone does.
Yeah, and it's hard to listen to a podcast, and I have in the past where you listen to a podcast and you're like, okay, you're just saying a bunch of fluff. How did you like actually do that? And also, did you struggle with imposter syndrome while you were doing it? Like, I feel so lost here. So our goal is to bring those conversations
to get to the actual root of who's this person and who were you along the journey and who did you become through it. Not just tell us about the product of who you are today.
Yeah.
That's not interesting.
And then what are you selling?
Yeah, it's not interesting. So yeah, the guest strategy has been a bit multifaceted, but we're really just shooting our shot. Oh, we do have Shoot Your Shot Fridays.
Yeah.
Where on Friday we get together and we send off a bunch of emails and DMs that feel very unattainable.
Yeah.
And we just hype each other up.
Shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot Friday, which is fun.
I love it. I think it's great.
The things that we are struggling with at the moment, I think, is around at what point do we try to monetize this? Do we try to monetize it? Is that the purpose? I did a bunch of research on what do your stats need to be for someone to want to sponsor your podcast? Does it make sense to get picked up by a media company? What are the benefits of that? I'm a very goal-oriented person. Like, I am in sales. I need give me the number, and I will chase it down. So it's been, I think that is why I started the research, is like, what is our goal? How many listeners do we need? how much advertising should we put on here? Is that even what we want to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are the other ways to monetize? Please add to this. But like the things that I have found, the tangible hard numbers that I found is that you can start to monetize through advertising between 5 and 10, once you reach 5 and 10,000 listeners per episode, which felt like a humongous number until we saw our own stats.
Yeah.
Which was really validating. And the way you can calculate the dollars is based on like impressions per 1,000 person. I'm forgetting the actual acronym that's used, but it's something like PP something, like impression per 1,000 listeners, and there's a dollar amount associated with that. So if you get 10,000 listeners per episode, maybe they'll pay you $200 per 1,000 person that is going to hear that, and that's how they calculate the ad dollars. And $200 per ad is on the higher end. It's between 20 and 200 or 50 and 200. And I guess the way we've thought about that is we certainly would not advertise with brands that don't align with Gateless and that we don't actually like. So that's the only probably hard line we've drawn so far. But we're open to exploring that. It's not the number one priority right now.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, we're just in a building phase, and we've had a ton of different ideas for monetization, but we haven't really, there hasn't been a moment where something is struck and been like, that's it. I think right now what's most important for us is just building the audience, because once you have an audience and you have attention, then you can monetize. You're more flexible in the ways that you can monetize.
Right.
For sure. And you don't want to monetize too soon, because then in a weird way, in an unnatural way, because then that's not what it's about. It's more about just building this platform is our like primary goal. And then soon we'll want to monetize it so we can continue doing it.
That's right. That would be the only goal to monetize, is that we want to be able to keep doing it and do it maybe more as a full-time thing.
Yeah. And have better equipment and better
make it more
guests.
legit. Yeah, exactly. Another way that we have explored is through affiliate links. So like when you listen to podcasts and they say, okay, here's a brand that I love, use this code to get a discount. So when you provide a link, a discount code or an affiliate link on any social platform, you typically get a kickback of what's purchased through that link. So again, something we're open to with brands that we really like. We actually applied for a few and have a couple that we've been accepted to. We haven't advertised them because we're trying to figure out how to do it authentically. But again, only brands of things we actually use. Yeah.
We sat down at our computers and we're like, ooh, thinking about things we love. I was like, recess.
Athletic greens.
Yeah.
Incurred.
Yeah, we're like, these are things that we like.
Yeah.
So we're not,
So we will start providing codes to you.
Especially things we're going to talk about already.
And the platforms, so some of the tech platforms that we use, we have codes for that other entrepreneurs could use to start your business. And then the other brands so far have been like health and wellness brands that we actually use. And then there's a ton of different ways. You can do live podcast episodes once you have a following and sell tickets to that. You can
have events.
You can have events.
Meetups. And did online networking groups, that kind of thing.
Yep. Let's see. What's like your biggest takeaway from the learning experience so far? We've only been doing this for a month and a half, the podcast.
I feel like my biggest takeaway has been, I'm like trying to articulate it. You know what happens. But my biggest takeaway has been like, I didn't really have many expectations going into starting the podcast. I was very nervous because, like I said earlier, sometimes I am more of a behind the screen, quietly with my head down working kind of person. But I feel like the experience so far has really helped me grow so much personally. I feel like I'm talking all about how it's benefited me personally, but it really has. And I feel like it has helped me to connect with other women and also open my eyes more to, when you're looking for a new car and you start to notice that car all the time. I feel like it's really helped me even become more of an anti-gatekeeper and become more of looking towards women that are doing really cool things and really noticing it and being like, I want to talk to her. She's doing really cool things. And just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it has really helped to expand my...
Making more curious about people that think similarly to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, I feel like I've always just been in my own little world with my head down.
Yep.
So it's really like,
I agree with that totally.
yeah.
Absolutely opened my eyes to incredible women that are creating things that are of huge value, and getting curious about how they did it and where they started and all that stuff. I agree. You want to share our stats?
Yeah, let's get into the stats. All right. The moment we've all been waiting for.
Hopefully month over month these go up.
Yeah, what if next month we're like, we've got bad news.
That'll be the journey, whatever.
So we've got some unfortunate updates. We're in the negatives. Okay, so we are currently at 5 episodes. When you're listening to this, it'll probably be 6.
Yep.
And we have 373 downloads since we published the podcast.
Like actually clicking download on the episode.
Yeah. And that's per Buzzsprout. They give you that information. Now, they don't give a lot of insights, but there are other websites that have better podcast statistics. Some of them you have to pay for them. It's really weird. The statistics of podcasts are very strange. So we use Rephonic, and I pay for Rephonic, but I think they have a free version as well where you can search like a certain number of podcasts. But we actually have 2,000 listeners per episode, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
We did not expect that. I expected maybe 50.
I expected like 50 to 100 per episode. No, 2,000 per episode. That's amazing.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
So we launched a month ago, 5 episodes. We're posting them every Thursday, every week. We are number 88 in Switzerland for business/entrepreneurship. And then we are number 137 in Switzerland for just business, not business/entrepreneurship. But the last time I checked this, we were number
237 in Ireland.
Very low, but number 237 in Ireland for business and entrepreneurship. But
shout out to Europe.
But Ireland's not there anymore.
Climbing the ranks in Switzerland. It's cool because it shows us everywhere in the world that people are listening, and it's almost every continent. Yeah. Except for maybe
We're
Russia.
global, baby.
Yeah. It's so cool. That's why I love this, is because we can reach so much further than our own network.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's been super fun. We're excited to keep doing these updates. I feel like this is a really fun, intimate, cool series that kind of gives you a behind the scenes look. And if you ever have any feedback on the podcast or what you want to see or why you love Gateless, we're all ears. We love it.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. I hope my head wasn't cut out.
I don't think it was.
I think that was good.
Yeah. We dished the tea.